Well, if we have a caretaker government, we'd have to say how could we constitute it, but I think more importantly is what would it do? Well, I think first of all it would have to reassert the legitimacy of law. I'm more impressed with law, common sense, than law as it's mindlessly, endlessly written in stone, and certainly I think some of these arbitrary prohibitions, like the prohibition of hemp, is a disgraceful way to use law and to use the forces of government to basically prevent people from developing their intelligences. Any chemical that provides in a harmless way an active ingredient to the brain chemistry that enables the human biocomputer, the mind, to function more effectively may be seen as a threat to the blue meanies and dirty tricksters and rip-off artists and these characters that have lost their moral compass and believe that domination was God's almighty plan for them. Self-aggrandizement is their sole purpose. I don't want to go down that road again. I'm really not interested in criticizing. I'm saying, okay, what would we need? Well, first of all, we need at least 60 to 70% of the population to believe that it's time to get rid of political parties in general. That's not to say you can't have them as discussion groups. That's not to say they can't be social conglomerations of people with similar thoughts. In fact, we need philosophical debate. But then to place them without any more serious legitimacy into the hands of 1% of the rich and then expect them to represent the well-being of the commons is totally absurd. So, leaving aside how do we do that, and I think the none of the above random selection, man and a woman in men and women's circles, is a very logical way of achieving a caretaker government, but we would need to establish an all of the above agenda. And an all of the above agenda, I think, has to take us sufficiently far back into our North American history and our exposure to the Aboriginal people of North America to realize that their purpose was the leisure state, and we should make the leisure state our purpose as well, where we're not economic slaves of one order or another. There's a lovely piece that I found. I don't know if I wrote it or somebody else wrote it, but it was copied out for me some years ago, and it says, through example, a reassertion of the rights within a sovereign state for the common people will demonstrate the value of an evolved culture wherein people are not forced by artificial circumstance to compete with each other for social stature, class, or physical well-being. To this end, a soundly based popular movement is necessary. Well, clearly we need a soundly based popular movement, and a popular movement that doesn't claim to have an ideology of anything except let's all be enjoying the creation that God Almighty, the Creator, gave to us, not to be fighting one another as the 18th century dominator empire builders wanted us to believe, like Darwin, for instance, and those lunatics, and Malthus and these other idiots that have encouraged genocide on a grand scale. And a popular movement with an agenda would simply start back where North American history began, and that is by the invasion of empire builders, the British, and I'm one of those, that were reaching the point where they realized that slavery was bad, that empire was bad, that we didn't have to steal from one another to live healthy and happy and dare I say Christian lives where we treated one another as children of one Creator. That's all been lost in this madness around numbers, this madness around money, this madness around deceit and dirty tricks as being legitimized. So let's start right there and say then we should have honourable settlement with the Aboriginal people. How do we do that? We acknowledge their title. Let them work it out how they choose to break it up. If they're all nations, then let them to work together as nations in solidarity. And if we're the settler people, then let us acknowledge what we are. We are a settling people. But we're not a genocidal people. We're not into destroying other people. And the Aboriginal people recognize that we are capable of living harmoniously with them on this land. And they are certainly capable of living with us harmoniously. But we have to stop the genocide. We have to ensure that the people on this land have as much as they're properly entitled to by being the first people here. Now, obviously the empire builders have got the control of the police, they've got the control of the army, they've got the control of the politicians, and regretfully, unless we're very careful, they'll have the control of the courts as well. That is why I believe we have to return to a law that starts out clean, and we say, yes, fee simple was a dirty trick. We could not do that to people, because you cannot buy and sell your mother for profit. And what we've been doing here is buying and selling our mother for profit. How many people have made their fortunes in, upping the price of real estate? So how do we address that? Well, we have to start with fiscal issues. We have to start with things like universal family credit. We have to start with a proper demonstration of democracy, so that we have proper referenda, official polls that are set up by the chief electoral officer, by the authorities that exist today. And I believe it's incumbent upon the chief electoral officer, and who's responsible, to take the hands right now of the government and lead them out of this dictatorship by cabinet and say, no, this is no longer acceptable. And I believe it's time for the courts to say, no, we cannot accept orders in council as being legitimate when the parliament is governed by a party that has less than 22% of the population. This is unconstitutional, it's undemocratic, and that is why we need a caretaker government. And if we started out with a fiscal acknowledgement that the land belongs to that we're guests on this land, we don't own it, this is our mother. The original title was certainly in the hands of those people that were here first. And if we acknowledge that, then we don't have to be dominators on this land. We can work together. We can work together by using the equity that is in that land, now owned by all the people of British Columbia, and on the basis of that we can have an internal economy based similarly on the LETS system. We can have an internal agricultural base which ensures that people can have good, clean, healthy food within a few miles of where they live. We don't have to chase oil. We don't have to dam any more rivers. There's the sun in the sky. That is our father, sun. And that father and this mother are the surface chemistry that enables us all to live. We need to readjust our thinking. We don't need to be digging into our mother and dragging out the veins that lubricate the planet, that prevent earthquakes by the plates sliding over one another. You'll find that wherever there are great plates, that's where they find the oil, because that's where the oil is necessary, so that our mother can slide over the mantle around the collapsing sun of the core of the earth, can be properly lubricated. And this is a big mistake to have dug that stuff out of our mother's skin. This is our mother. We have to treat her with respect. This is our creation. We're all in it. We have to address every single thing that we see with respect and amazement that it exists in our reality. Anyway, I'm beginning to rant, and I think that's enough. And the seagulls will be laughing at me soon for standing out here by the river and going on like this. But I don't know. That makes me a wayside preacher, I guess. God bless.